Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, this is getting out of control. There's no other way to put it. This is getting completely and utterly out of control. And I don't know about you, but especially in the wake of the third assassination attempt on President Trump just last week at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. When is this violent rhetoric that the Democrats and the media keep spewing, not just against Trump, but against members of his cabinet, against his high-profile supporters, when is this going to end? I mean, do they want blood on the streets? Do they want to see members of the cabinet shot dead? Do they want to see assassinations left, right, and center? Like, there has to be a certain point where the country as a whole says, enough is freaking enough. Now, in this case, and I'm not surprised because my nickname for him is Moron. Okay? Seth Moron Moulton, Democrat congressman from Massachusetts. He's a far leftist. Always has been, and he's locked in now, it's obvious, in a primary fight with Markula. I want to suck your money. I want to take your blood. And they're locked in a really, intense primary fight because Moulton is no longer happy just serving in the House. He wants to take over the Senate seat that Markey now currently occupies. And Markey, as you know, is backed by AOC, Bernie, Mamdani, the very hard left wing of the Democratic Party. And so with that powerful base of support and backing, Moulton now needs to find a way to separate himself, to generate some extra attention, to maybe appeal to the moonbats in a stronger, more visceral way than Markey is. So what does Moulton now do? Well, let's start calling for the death of Pete Hegseth. So here is exactly what took place. As you know, a couple days ago, Pete Hegseth went in front of a committee, in fact, several committees, up on Capitol Hill. And he was grilled about the war with Iran. And it was contentious. It was nasty. It was combative. They went after Hegseth hard. Hegseth hit back very hard. And so, in the wake of Hegseth's testimony, in particular, there was one exchange between Moulton and Hegseth, where Moulton keeps going on about those boats that are getting blown up in the Caribbean. Now remember, we're not talking about the Strait of Hormuz. We're not talking about Iran and the war with Iran. No. Moron Moulton is still obsessed about the fact that under Hegseth, the Department of War, as it's now called, has been launching operation after operation where they've been launching strikes, drone strikes, missile strikes, destroying these high-speed boats that are trafficking cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, some of the most deadly narcotics into our country. And they're blowing them up on the high seas. Well, Moulton went after Hegseth, saying that these are quote-unquote war crimes. So Moulton then, of course, goes on, this is CNN. And, of course, CNN working hand in glove with the Democratic Party, because that's what they are. They're just a propagandist arm for the Democratic Party. This is not some serious media outlet. So what do? They tee him up. Aaron Burnett tees him up. What do you make of Pete Hegseth? And what do you make about Hegseth, those attacks on these boats, these high-speed boats in the Caribbean? Is Hegseth committing war crimes, as you claimed in that congressional hearing? Is the Secretary of War a war criminal? Listen now to Seth Moulton, Moron Moulton's response. Roll cut 10, Mike.
Do you believe that the Secretary of Defense is guilty of war crimes?
Absolutely. I mean, he's clearly behind the operation to shoot all these boats in the Caribbean when it's very unclear that we actually have any confirmation that these so-called narco-terrorists, a term the administration invented to justify this action, are even on the boats. I mean, in fact, there's a lot of evidence that these are just fishermen, getting jobs, piloting these boats, trying to feed their families. There's been press reporting on some of these individuals who've been killed, who are clearly not war criminals. And on top of that, we then have the strike where they came back and hit it again, a double tap, just purely to kill these survivors who were clinging to wreckage. It's interesting, Aaron, another historical analogy. Back in World War II, the Allies tried Nazi submarine captains for doing this exact same thing. And guess what the conclusion was? They got executed.
He's basically calling for the execution of Pete Hegseth. He's comparing him to a Nazi submarine captain and saying that we, like the Nazis, are going around blowing up innocent civilians on these fishermen on these boats, indiscriminately engaging in mass murder. And like the Nazis, Pete Hegseth deserves to be shot, to be executed. He's calling for the death of the Secretary of Defense. And the Aaron Burnett's like, interesting. Very nice perspective. And notice how, so disgustingly biased. Really, you guys call yourselves journalists over there at CNN? Do you think he's guilty of war crimes? Boy, that's a loaded question if I ever heard one. Do you think he beats his wife? What do you, Seth? Do you think Pete Hegseth beats his wife? Seth, does he have sex with goats? Well, what do you think? Is he? Does he like to have untoward relations with goats? Does he like to sleep with pigs? Absolutely. Absolutely. He was on a farm. What the hell was he doing on a farm? This is so absurd, honestly, on so many levels. So let's just state the obvious, okay? Since when are these fishermen? What fantasy are you peddling? I've never known fishermen who take speedboats, all three engines rev to the maximum, and they're flying on the high seas. I'm sorry, there's fishermen who listen to this show out in Gloucester and other areas. Call in, you tell me, do you guys get one of these expensive speedboats and you just gun it and you're flying, 50, 60 miles an hour on the high seas? Is that how you guys fish? Because apparently that's what the Democrats now say is the new modern way of fishing. No fishing gear whatsoever on any of these boats. There's no fishing pole. There's no net. There's no fishing gear. By the way, there's no fish. There's no fish. So apparently if they were fishing, wouldn't they have some fish? They would have caught something, wouldn't they? Instead, you know what you see on every one of those fishing boats? I'll tell you what you see. You see drivers who are either members of MS-13, we can tell by the tattoos and the insignia on the tattoos, or Tren de Aragua, okay, the Venezuelan rival to MS-13. And you know how we can tell them? By their tattoos and insignia. And you see duffel bags, obviously loaded with drugs. Or you see bundles, cube bundled packages. Either they're bundling the fentanyl, they're bundling the cocaine, whatever. No. That's bait. That's bait, according to Seth Moulton. No. That's just the bait. What you see in there, the white powdered stuff in a bag. No, that's bait. This is is so absurd on so many levels. But notice, they're angry that President Trump is saving hundreds of thousands of lives because that's what they're doing by blowing up these speedboats. You see, they preferred it under the Biden years, when the drug cartels, the Mexican drug cartels, or the Venezuelan regime under Maduro were allowing all of these drug traffickers to come in unimpeded and flood our country with fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, some of the deadliest narcotics, and killing on average 100,000 Americans a year. Okay, I want to play it one more time. One more time, and then I want to ask you what you hear. Is it what most people are hearing? Because the backlash has been ferocious online, absolutely fierce against Seth Moulton, but I want to give all of you a chance. So, if you're just tuning in, Congressman Moulton, Massachusetts moonbat, and believe me, he's a moonbat's moonbat. You don't get more left-wing than Seth Moulton, and to be frank, you don't get stupider than Seth Moulton. You know, one of the poll questions Sandy and I are toying with, we haven't quite decided on one yet, is who's the dumbest member of Congress? A, Seth Moulton, B, AOC, C, Ilhan Omar, or, you could throw in another, or there's too many, Mike. That's the problem. You know what I'm saying? But, anyway, or Maxine Waters. Let's put Maxine Waters in there as D. But anyway, he's up there. I mean, he's really, really up there. So, Moulton was accusing Hegseth of committing war crimes. This was in Congress when Hegseth was testifying in front of a House committee on the war in Iran. Nothing to do with the war in Iran. Moulton decides to go on about these speedboats that are trafficking drugs and getting blown up by the Department of Defense, rightly so, our military, using drones, missile strikes to prevent these deadly narcotics from killing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Americans over the last couple of years. And so he goes on and says, well, these are fishermen. These are innocent people. They're just trying to feed their family. And you're massacring them. And so Aaron Burnett obviously says, whoa, do you think he's a war criminal? Is Pete Hegseth a war criminal? And listen to Hegseth's response. It is stunning. Roll cut 10, Mike.
Do you believe that the Secretary of Defense is guilty of war crimes?
Absolutely. I mean, he's clearly behind the operation to shoot all these boats in the Caribbean when it's very unclear that we actually have any confirmation that these so-called narco-terrorists, a term the administration invented to justify this action, are even on the boats. I mean, in fact, there's a lot of evidence that these are just fishermen, getting jobs, piloting these boats, trying to feed their families. There's been press reporting on some of these individuals who've been killed who are clearly not war criminals. And on top of that, we then have the strike where they came back and hit it again, a double tap, just purely to kill these survivors who were clinging to wreckage. It's interesting, Aaron, another historical analogy. Back in World War II, the Allies tried Nazi submarine captains for doing this exact same thing. And guess what the conclusion was? They got executed.
Okay, so you tell me. To me, it's obviously it's clear as day. He's making the analogy that Pete Hegseth is similar to a Nazi submarine captain, and these Nazis were tried for crimes against humanity. They were executed. They were given death. And that our military is akin to the Nazis, and that we're going around just slaughtering innocent civilians, massacring them, blowing them up, and Pete Hegseth has committed war crimes, is a war criminal, and the penalty should be execution, death. Now, I can't read the evidence any other way. He is calling for the murder or the death or the execution, however you want to phrase it, of the Secretary of War. Now, when are Democrats going to stop calling for the murder either of Trump or his top lieutenants? It's the biggest dog whistle. In other words, somebody should take him out. It's like taking out Himmler or Goering or, whatever, some of the other leading figures and members of the Nazi hierarchy, Goebbels or whoever. So, yeah, he's a war criminal and he deserves to be killed. Now, I'm telling you, this is violent rhetoric. This is a cult of hatred. This is the culture of assassination. And it's now becoming so frequent, it's so inundating the airwaves. Again, I'm telling you, it's not just Trump who's going to have another assassination attempt. Now you're going to see members of his cabinet targeted. And I think Seth Moulton is an embarrassment. He should, at a bare minimum, apologize. He won't, because he's a hero now to the left. See, he's got to out-moonbat Ed Markey. So how do you out-moonbat Ed Markey? Well, Markey has the issues cornered. There's no one more to the left than Markey. So you got to be more sensational. So how do you appeal to the crazy moonbats in Massachusetts? Kill them! Execute them! They're Nazi war criminals. Line them up and shoot them. Put them up against the wall and shoot away, baby. That's the only way he can break through, because apparently you look at the polls, Markey's up double digits against Seth Moulton in the primary. So he's got to get traction on the hardcore left, which now dominates the Democratic Party. He can't do it on the issues. So now it's, I'm going to be more violent than Markey. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. All right, I want to go to Mark in Pembroke. Just before I do, I want to ask all of you, do you think Seth Moulton, Congressman Moulton, is calling for the death or execution of Pete Hegseth? Number one. Number two, what should Republicans now do in the face of this rising chorus on the left, on the Democratic Party, in the media, with violent political rhetoric, calling increasingly now for the murder of either Trump or his top cabinet members or their political opponents? What should Republicans do to counter now this culture of political extremism and really of violence and assassination? 617-266-6868 is the number. To me, they should disqualify Seth Moulton as a primary challenger to Ed Markey, and frankly, he should resign his seat. The man is an absolute disgrace. He's a disgrace to the Marines. He's a disgrace to Congress. He's a disgrace to the Democratic Party. He's a disgrace to the country. But that's me. 617-266-6868. And just to show you how fair I am, to those of you that agree with Hegseth, I'd love for you to call in and tell me why. Does Hegseth have a point? Are we, what we're doing in the Caribbean, are they war crimes in your view? Do you think we are committing war crimes when we blow these boats up? Or do you think Hegseth is clearly lying and smearing our military in order to go after Hegseth and to present himself as even a more viable candidate, more anti-Trump, more opposed to the administration, more a part of the resistance than Markey? So he is having to make up accusations and claims about our military in order to score points with the Democrat base in a primary. And what does this say about the Democrats? That the way to stand out is to call for the murder of their political opponents. Ay, ay, ay. 617-266-6868. Are we committing war crimes in the Caribbean? And is our military now on a par with Nazi Germany? Seth Moulton and the Democrats say yes. I say these people are insane. What say you? Mark in Pembroke. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. So you're right. Moulton is an absolute disgrace. I spent 20 years as a tactical crew member on Navy Lockheed P-3 Orion Maritime Patrol and Reconnaissance aircraft, 4 years active duty and 16 reserve. And during my final 5 years, our primary mission was counter-narcotics operations in the Caribbean. And I'm personally responsible for stopping dozens and dozens and dozens of narcotic shipments from entering the country. And the mission profile that we flew back in those days was no different than what they're doing right now, except that in my day, instead of taking the drug boats out, we vectored in Navy or Coast Guard to stop, inspect, and board the vessels. And again, I was involved in dozens of these efforts, and never, absolutely never did we ever stop a fishing boat. Our intelligence is very, very good, and we knew exactly who we were dealing with when we were tracking these boats across the Caribbean. And for Moulton to say that we're taking out fishing boats and innocent fishermen is absolute nonsense. It's garbage.
Well, I got to ask you, you're completely on. By the way, Mark, you're 1,000% correct. But, you know, I've never seen this. And honestly, you tell me, Mark, if I'm missing something. On any of these boats that they've blown up, there are no fishing nets. There are no fishing poles. There's no fish. Normally, fishermen catch fish. None of that. I mean, I could go on and on. But so where do they come up with this crazy idea that these are just poor, downtrodden fishermen who are just trying to feed their families, and they're piloting these boats at 50, 60 miles an hour? I don't know what they're chasing, a great white shark or something, and why you have to be going at that speed. And then we're just blowing them up for the sake of blowing them up because Pete Hegseth is a sadist. He's a Nazi sadist who has to appease his bloodlust. I mean, that's really what they're saying. And who's so sadistic that even after he blows up these boats and these poor fishermen, as they cling to the wreckage, I was just trying to feed my family. I just needed to fish for my family. And, you know, Hegseth, you know, like Himmler in the SS. Aha, kill him again. Bomb him again. Come on, double tap him. Yeah, yeah. You know, Zig Heil, Zig Heil. So my question to you is, where do they get this idea that if you're working for the drug cartels and you're operating boats that are flying at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour on the high seas with no fishing gear, no fishing poles, no fishing nets, no fish, nothing whatsoever, suddenly now you're this poor innocent fisherman who's just getting blown out of the water because Pete Hegseth thinks it's a video game and gets his jollies out of killing people? Where do they come up with something as stupid and sick as this, Mark?
Well, they get it out of thin air. It's a lie, and you know, it's all TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. But the bottom line here is that these aircraft that are going out and finding these things, they're not just doing random searches of the Caribbean, picking out a boat and taking it out. They have very, very good intelligence from beginning to end. And again, I don't want to talk about sources and methods, but you know, again, I did this some years ago. Things are probably better right now, but our intelligence was flawless. We knew when these boats were leaving, where they were leaving from, who was on them, and most importantly, what the cargo was. So, when they're picking these things up, they already know that they're smuggler boats.
Why?
They know.
I've got to ask you, Mark, the $64,000 question. And this is, I don't understand the Democrat mindset. It is so foreign to me. It's so alien to me. Frankly, it's so revolting to me because it goes against everything that all of my values, everything I was brought up to believe. Why would someone like Seth Moulton go out of his way to defend drug cartels, drug traffickers? You want to talk about mass murderers. It's not Pete Hegseth. It's these people that are bringing in this poison that is killing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Americans over the last couple of years. So they're siding with the drug traffickers, the drug dealers, the drug smugglers, the killers, the murderers, over hundreds of thousands of American victims. What goes into the mind of someone like Seth Moulton that what matters most to you is not the victims, fellow Americans being killed, overdosing on this, 100,000 a year. But no, let them now smuggle in their drugs. Don't blow them out of the water. Let them come in unimpeded, unharassed, unopposed as they were under the Biden years. Can you, seriously, Mark, can you explain that mentality to me?
Comes down to is that Seth Moulton is a Marxist. He's a cultural Marxist. He doesn't like this country. He wants to bring it down, and anything he can do to hasten its collapse and bring about the revolution is fair game.
I think you nailed it. I think he's brainwashed, and I think he hates himself, and I think he hates his country, and I think in some fundamental level he hates the military. I know he was a Marine. I know he served, and I've always said thank you for your service. We had him on once, and that was one of the first things I said to him. Thank you for your service. But I think he's a self-hating American, and he hates the military for whatever reason. Because for him to compare the U.S. military to the Nazis, and just to show you how real this issue is, I know for Moulton, moron Moulton, this is all just a game to get votes. I think I'm not saying he doesn't believe what he's saying. He clearly believes what he's saying. But as I said, he's trying to out-moonbat Ed Markey in the primary. So he can't do it on the issues because Markey is to the left of Vladimir Lenin and is supported and endorsed by AOC and Bernie Sanders and, Zoran Mamdani. So Moulton's not going to beat him on that front. So he's got to, be more sensationalistic, and he's got to be more violent. So that's why he's like, kill him. Death to Pete Hegseth. He's a war criminal. They're all war criminals. Shoot him. So that's the only way he can gain traction with these crazy moonbats. Now, in reality, though, this is what the so-called drug war that we're losing, by the way, although it's getting better under Trump and Hegseth, God bless them, but we've been losing this drug war now for a long time, and it was a disaster under Biden. Not only were our borders open to illegals, our borders were wide open to the most deadly narcotics on the face of the earth. And I can't tell you how many young Americans in particular were killed because of this. Okay, it's one of the great crimes of the Biden regime. Well, this is from Nancy on Messenger. Good morning, Jeff. Well, good morning to you, Nancy. This is coming from a grandmother who lost a grandson from fentanyl 4 years ago. I thank Pete Hegseth for wiping out these narco-terrorists from the face of this earth. And anyone who has lost a loved one to this scourge of drugs, will say the exact same thing. Amen. Amen. And as I wrote back to Nancy while we were off air, I'm so sorry, truly sorry about the loss of your grandson. It's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. That's why what Moulton said is so outrageous and so revolting and so disgusting and so reprehensible on so many levels. It's not just that he's calling for violence and the death of Hegseth in the wake of the attempted assassination, the third one on Trump, that he defamed our military, basically saying they're no different than the Nazis, but that he's willing to side with these evil, mass-murdering, drug-peddling cartels against the very innocent citizens and victims of the United States. I mean, it's disgusting on so many levels. Okay, this is from 781. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from 781. Jeff, these are not fishing boats. These are not boats designed to catch and haul seafood. These are boats meant for speed. These are boats that can actually reach a speed of 90 plus miles per hour and consume more money in fuel costs in 1 hour at mid-speed than a boatload of the most expensive catch of seafood. So for Seth Moulton to suggest these are fishing boats should disqualify him for stupidity or dishonesty. Oh, wait, Jeff. Those are the qualifications for being a Democrat. And by the way, on the who's the most stupidest member or the most stupid member of Congress? 781 says, Jeff, it's Hank Johnson. No one else comes close. You know, he's the guy that said Guam is going to flip over. If there's too many people on the island, that Guam is just going to flip over. Yeah, you may be right there, 781. But I'll tell you this. Moulton, AOC, Ilhan Omar, and Mad Max, Maxine Waters, can give Hank Johnson one hell of a run for his money. 617-266-6868. By the way, Nancy replied as I'm on the air reading her message, and it's truly heartbreaking. And she says, Jeff, thank you. The pain never goes away, and it devastated my family. And that's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of families with similar stories. It never goes away. You're never the same. And that's why I've been saying this for many years. The way liberals look at crime and the way conservatives look at crime. Liberals look at crime and they pity the criminal. They justify, rationalize the criminal. And they demonize the victim. We pity the victim. We sympathize and have compassion for the victim, who's the innocent one here. And we have no sympathy for the criminal, because the criminal is the evildoer. And when you take someone's life, you didn't just take one life. You shattered and destroyed the lives of people around that person. The parents, the siblings, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the close friends. They never, ever are the same again. Ever. And that's why what Seth Moulton said to me, it's beyond the pale. Anyway, so here in this state, it's going to give him a boost in the polls. I'm telling you. He's going to get an extra bump out of it. I still don't think he's going to beat Markey, because Markey's just got so much support from that, radical left wing of the Democratic Party the AOC Bernie Sanders Mamdani wing. But you'll see. He's down about 18 points. If you look at the polls, give or take, he'll be down about 15, 14 after this scandal. He's going to get a 3 or 4 point boost because nothing appeals to Democrats more now than open, naked calls for murder and assassination of Trump cabinet members, or their conservative or MAGA opponents. So, and I think Moulton, he's not going to stop. He's going to continue. He's going to realize the more I call for people being killed and executed, the higher my poll numbers are going to go. So for him, I don't know if it's cynical or if he really means it. But either way, he's a sick, sick man. Lou in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Lou, and welcome.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
I'd like to take this a little bit deeper than what you're saying, because I think the whole thing is, including Moulton, who's part of this group of Democrats, is much more sinister than I think we even know about. First of all, number one, this fisherman business was in Cole Allen's manifesto. It was right there in Cole Allen's manifesto that you read the other day. And, just the other day, Erica Kirk came out and said something that was very right on point with this, is that these Democrats, they pervert the truth so that, and to the point that they motivate some of these kinds of radicalized Democrats or radicalized leftists to the point where they killed her husband. So this is what happens when you have people like Seth Moulton going on and spouting this stuff. It's probably a lie, what he's talking about, especially when you're with the information that's been coming out from your texters and your previous caller. And this is what they're doing. They're trying to motivate these radicalized people to go out and commit not only assassinations, but all the stuff that ICE is doing. I mean, Antifa is doing against ICE, and all this other stuff. I mean, if you ever seen any of the testimony of the angel moms in Congress, the people who the women whose children were killed by illegal immigrants, the Democrats treat them like total crap. I mean, it's terrible how they dismiss them and dismiss their tears. It's just horrible, and it goes. And there was another thing that came out last week. I think it's been ignored to the most part, but it came out last week about the Southern Poverty Legal Center. What they did was they funneled money to hate groups that then again the Democrats and the media turned on to use against Trump, especially in Charlottesville. The Democrats are just trying to totally undermine this country through lies and hate. And I wish you would maybe play a little bit about what Erica Kirk said, but she was right on point. They're just trying to trigger people and desensitize people so that they can accept the idea of like assassinations and killings and going after ICE and coddling these criminals and terrorists and drug dealers. They're as radicalized and as nutty as the most radical of radical Islamists. And not only that, what's actually really, really funny, Jeff, or ironic rather, it's not funny, it's ironic, is that they support, like people like Moulton support this guy, a real Nazi like Graham Plattner in Maine. There's a deeper thing, a deeper plot that's going on here.
Oh, you're dead on. I'm going to talk about that later in the show. Governor Janet Mills has dropped out of the Senate race. You know, she's a two-term governor. And she's a hardcore leftist, but she's not left enough now for the Democratic Party. And so she announced it yesterday. She's dropped out of the race to Graham Plattner, who's the darling now, again, of the AOC Sanders Mamdani left that now is dominating the Democratic Party. This man, not as an exaggerated, not exaggerating for effect, literally has a Nazi tattoo on his chest. And not just any Nazi tattoo. That's bad enough. It's the SS, the skull and bones, the SS Death's Head tattoo. So the tattoo of the worst of the worst of the Nazis. And this is now who the Democrats are going to vote for to be their nominee to go up against Susan Collins in Maine. So they're running around calling Hegseth a Nazi, Trump a Nazi, me a Nazi. Frankly, all of you in the audience are a bunch of Nazis, according to them, while they're actually voting for real Nazis with a freaking tattoo stamped on the chest. I mean, they're sick. It's classic projection. And let me just say this, Lou, because you touched on it. Erica Kirk is not 1,000%. She's 1,000,000% correct. There is now a campaign by the Democrats, these are her words, not mine, of, quote, dehumanization. And she says the reason why they're in this campaign of dehumanization is because if you dehumanize your opponents, it makes it much easier then to call for violence and to call for the murder and the assassination of your opponents. Because ultimately, you're not really killing a person. You're killing an evil monster. And that's what Seth Moulton is part of. You see, Hegseth is not just a man who spent 3 tours defending his country and putting his life on the line. He's not just a veteran and a war hero who's trying to do his best as Secretary of War to keep this country safe from the most dangerous, deadly drug cartels, gangs, and narcotics in the world. No. He's a Nazi submarine captain who gets his jollies out of just killing people for the sake of killing people. We have a genocidal mass murderer as the Secretary of War. That's what Moulton is saying. Who deserves death. Who deserves to be executed. Which is, it's obvious. Wink, wink. Somebody take him out. Put a bullet in his brain. He deserves it. Now, you see this everywhere, over and over and over and over. This is this culture of violence, of violent rhetoric, of assassination, of utter demonization of your opponents. That, I'm telling you, that's what the communists do. That's their politics to a T. Both the communists and the Nazis, that's what distinguished them. And that's what they're trying to mainstream and normalize. And it's no accident that the more the Democrats go down this road, the more violence we see, political violence, political terrorism. We're almost getting immune, numb to it. But I just want everybody to stand back for a second. Ask yourself this. In your entire lives, I don't care if you're 25 years old, 40 years old, 60, 80, 90 years old. It doesn't matter. Whatever your age. When did you ever see or hear of a president 3 assassination attempts in a year and a half? 3. I mean, there were more, but 3 high profile, public. When did you ever hear of this? Ever. During the raging debate over the Iraq War. We didn't see this with George W. Bush. Obama, the ferocious opposition to Obama. We didn't see any of this. As Joe Biden was destroying our country deliberately, wrecking it, degrading it, you never saw any of this. Under Reagan, under Nixon, with the Vietnam War and the way the left hated Nixon, you never saw any of this. 3 assassination attempts in less than 2 years. And let's be honest, the first one, that was going right for the brain. That was a miracle. And instead of hitting him in the brain at the last second, millisecond, in fact, he turns his head, it hits his ear. Blood spurting everywhere. Exposed on the Florida golf course. He was a sitting duck had he not been spotted, that shooter not been spotted in the bushes. And then the Washington Hilton on Saturday. Kamikaze style. And with a manifesto saying, I'm going in there to shoot him and the entire cabinet up. Pete Hegseth was there. He was on the victims list, the murder list. And everybody in the country, everybody agrees. I don't care, left, right, Republican, Democrat. Everybody says there's going to be a fourth. Everybody says it. It's like, I don't know, it's going to rain this weekend. Yeah, it's going to be cold and probably a good chance of rain. In other words, it's going to keep coming. It's not going to stop. So why is it not going to stop? Why? Because of people like Seth Moulton. Because it's like a drug now. They can't stop themselves. They have to call now, not just for Trump's murder and assassination, but now you're seeing it with Hegseth, J.D. Vance. They're already calling for his murder. RFK Jr., they're calling for his murder. Marco Rubio, they're calling for his murder. And it's going to spread. They're going to start to go after governors, members of Congress, senators. And this is how a society unravels and breaks apart. And that's when the communists or the Nazis, it's different circumstances, different countries, but that's when they come in and seize power. For evil to succeed, for evil to thrive, there must be chaos. Evil loves chaos. The devil loves anarchy, destruction, chaos. That's like, as they say, the devil's playground. So, and you see Moulton, and I'm sorry, I have to say this, with his deranged eyes, just look at him. Like his eyes are like spinning in his head. And he clearly does not look mentally well. And hasn't looked well for years. And basically what he's saying is, I hate my military that I served in. I hate my country that I served. And I think we're all a bunch of Nazis. And now I want the Secretary of War to be murdered. Because he's daring to blow up speedboats which are carrying the deadliest narcotics and drugs meant to murder and kill innocent Americans. I mean, you are one twisted, sick puppy, let me tell you. And this is what passes for congressional representation in Massachusetts? You can't make this up. You know, I used to say this about the Ayatollahs. You have crazy and crazier. This is what you have now in the Democratic Party. You have crazy and crazier. So here, at the primary, Markey and Moulton. Really. Moonbat Markey versus moron Moulton. Crazy and crazier. 617-266-6868. Heather in Wareham. Thanks for holding, Heather, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
So, in answer to your question a while ago, and she brought up this point to me, and I didn't really think about it until she mentioned it. And you said, why would Seth be on the side of like the cartels and the people that are trying to like kill the Americans with the drugs? Well, she made this very good point, and I believe it. I honestly feel, or she said this, but I agree with her, that the Democrats want it's done on purpose. They want society on drugs. They want society. So it basically, it's part of it's twofold. It's part of the population control, and you have a society that's hooked on drugs. They're not paying attention to what's going on. They're just so hooked on their drugs that you.
Heather, please, this is such an important point. Hang on. I'm going to come right back to you. I want you to finish your point. Okay, we're going to go right back to Heather in Wareham. I thought she was about to make an absolutely brilliant point. But just before I do, my friends, the best way to listen to the Kuhner Report is on the iHeartRadio app. And as you've seen over the last couple of weeks, we've now launched something brand new, Kuhner's Talk Back Tit for Tat. You just look for the red microphone in the upper right corner of the app. You leave a message for me, the Kuhner Man, or for Sandy, or for Mike. Agree, disagree, respond, react, anything goes. So leave your talkbacks anytime during the week, and every Monday in the final segment, we will play the best ones on the air. So download the iHeart app, hit that red microphone, and join Kuhner's Talkback Tit for Tat, baby. All right, Heather, you are making a really fascinating point. Maybe the Democrats want not just open borders for illegals to flood our country, obviously, but open borders to allow drugs, narcotics, fentanyl, heroin, cocaine to pour into our country, because not only does it kill a lot of Americans, population control, also a drugged out population, a stoned population, a population addicted to narcotics, is one that's easy to control and manipulate. Please pick up where you left off, Heather.
Yeah, I wish I could say that this was I thought of this originally, but I didn't. I pondered on what my friend Holly had mentioned this to me, and I agree. So I put kind of thought about this, and this is my take on it, and I totally agree with what she said, because you think about it, now it seems like every corner, not every corner, but I'm exaggerating, but everywhere you go, you see a pot shop. Like, it's everywhere you go, you see a pot shop. Somebody, a pot, they're like, just kind of mellow, and, I don't want to say they don't pay attention, but I think that, like you said, they're a little more easy to manipulate, like, the stoned out population. And I also think that, I'm not saying like people on that use, marijuana are just like, all easy. Like some people use it for medicinal and things like that. So I'm not saying that, but I think that was the premise of why they, the thought that went into why they decided to legalize this is some of the thought that went into legalizing this. Soon you're going to see they're going to want to legalize more of the hardcore drugs, which I don't understand. Because the I'm going on a tangent, but the drug war, the government makes a lot of money off of that too, because, you seize the drugs and they get the asset forfeitures and whatever. But the other thing I'm trying to say is I could be wrong, but I bet you it's the same thing with like the illegals. You put the legals and you give them everything, but you got the people on the drugs. I bet you most of them are probably more Democratic than Republican. If you ask them if they actually vote, I'm talking about the hardcore people, like the people living on the street, that are drugged.
Look, I think I'm grateful, because you're saying what many people are thinking, but for whatever reason don't want to say openly. And it's an open secret. George Soros has said his goal is to legalize all hard drugs in the United States. He's the sugar daddy of the Democratic Party. So there has been a strong push behind the scenes to not just legalize marijuana. I always said this. I go, that's the camel's nose under the tent. That's the Trojan horse. Once you legalize marijuana and weed, next, it's going to be cocaine, it's going to be heroin, it's going to be fentanyl, it's going to be the hardest of the hardcore drugs. And why? Well, just think about it. Your person that's shooting up somewhere in some corner, on a sidewalk or in their home or wherever they may be, in some restaurant, bathroom, on the toilet floor, is that person a free citizen, self-reliant, personal responsibility, able to work hard, pay their taxes? Are they going to vote Republican? Or are you now the ultimate slave of the government? It's a form of slavery. When you look at what the Democrats are trying to do, bit by bit, they're trying to make us enslaved to the government. We pay more taxes than ever, slave to the government. We're more dependent on government handouts and government programs and government assistance, slave to the government. Now, everybody's got to get their weed. And studies show over and over again, it does make you more lethargic. It does make you more, how do I say this, disengaged from society. I mean, look, I know many people who are stoners. I'm serious. They work at, anyway, I know who they are. And they're like, hey, man, I get my weed. I'm happy. I don't care what's going on. War, no war. Who cares? What's going on in this country? Flood it with illegals. Don't flood it with illegals. Climate change hoax, welfare fraud and abuse, stealing money left, right, and center. Hey, man, this feels good, man. Oh, yeah, I'm happy, man. And they just go, they get stoned and they smoke up and they're happy. And that's why you see the loss of social outrage. People don't get as outraged as before. You see a lot less common engagement. People are like, how come people don't care about anything anymore? Well, a lot of them are on drugs. They're high as a kite. So as long as they can keep getting their marijuana or whatever their fix is, they're happy. And let everything around them go to, just go to hell. Okay, just to put an exclamation point on what we were talking about last segment, look at most Democrat-run blue cities. Portland, Seattle, Boston, obviously, under Mayor Woob. Doesn't matter. Mamdani in New York, Brandon Johnson in Chicago, Karen Bass in L.A. I could go on and on. What is one of the defining features of a Democrat-run city? Yes, a lot of homelessness, no question, San Francisco, L.A., but drug dens everywhere. People shooting up everywhere. Discarded needles everywhere. Everywhere. Mass and Cass is notorious here in Boston, where you see heroin addicts just shooting up right there on the sidewalk, on the street corner. And, you try to walk in some areas and you're like, I don't want to step on some unused needle and God knows what, I'll get AIDS or HIV or whatever. And all of this is being deliberately tolerated, not by Republicans, not by conservatives. Conservatives, Republicans want clean, safe, wholesome cities and counties and towns and states. But look at the degradation that Democrats spread wherever they take power. Cultural degradation, physical degradation, moral degradation. This is not by accident. So there's no question. That's why they hate Trump for, doing everything in his power to stop these speedboats and these deadly, deadly narcotics and drugs from flooding our country. Because it's obvious. They want the country overwhelmed with illegals and they want it overrun with fentanyl. Because then they control the country. They run the country. Then people are there that they can be manipulated and shaped and dependent upon them. But the fact that they're degrading us to a third world nation, they don't care. Because it's also ultimately about power. That's the one thing the Democrats care about most above all, power. What maximizes their power and what enables them to control and manipulate people. 617-266-6868 is the number. Agree, disagree. Dave in Essex. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dave?
It's a beautiful day, Jeff. The sun's out, the sky's blue. That's all I could say to do.
Yeah, and hopefully the Bruins will win tonight, Dave. Fingers crossed.
I don't know about that one, Jeff. I'm not saying a word. I'll plead the fifth.
Dave, what do you make of all this, my friend?
Jeff, ever since Donald Trump's gotten into office again, doing what he knows he needs to do, and everybody else is crying and screaming about it, he's doing the right thing, Jeff. We don't need a bunch of heroin and fentanyl going around the city. And Jeff, let me break it down. I've been hearing from passengers. You know my job. Jeff, I've heard that some people who've been outside smoking weed, and when they buy it on the street, Jeff, they're lacing it with fentanyl, and people have been smoking it that way. And next you know, they're in the hospital, either, overdose or, they're going to die. And Jeff is like, weed itself isn't bad for people to where they're going to overdose on it. Okay? It's the young kids today who are buying the weed on the street that's making them sick and everything because they don't know any better because down on Mass and Cass and all that area, Jeff, it's pathetic. So they don't even know what they're smoking. And Jeff, I'll tell you, honestly, weed's not killing people. It's not the weed killing people. It's all the narcotics and the cocaine and everything else that's coming through the border. So Donald Trump's doing the right thing and what he's doing. It's not a war crime, Jeff. It's not a war crime. We're at war with the dictators from all these communist countries that are wanting the money from the United States, and these Democrats are making money on every boat that gets over to the other side of the shoreline because they're getting money, Jeff. That's what they're screaming about. They're losing money every time a boat gets blown up, and Uncle Donald's doing the right thing. And, Jeff, I got one question for you.
Go ahead. Shoot.
Okay. You talk about rough greens a lot on how good it is for your dog, right?
Yes.
Okay, Jeff, would that help me with my coffee in the morning?
Dave, I don't know, man. Grace swears by Starbucks, If your coffee's not doing anything for you, Grace says go to Starbucks. So, I mean, it's expensive, but apparently it's great. From what I hear, they say it's great coffee. Dave, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. No, he's completely right. He's absolutely right. And, look, the other angle to this that nobody wants to touch, drugs is huge in Washington. There's a lot of parties that members of Congress go to. It's an open secret. Senators, congressmen, congresswomen, and there's a lot of cocaine. There's a lot of, heroin. There's a lot of pills. And that's the other thing. We're just talking about the narcotics. Look at the so-called legal drugs, the SSRIs, the antidepressants, and how addictive some of them are, how in so many mass shootings, there's always a common link between SSRIs or, so-called, medication or drugs from the pharmaceutical companies. So it's obvious the more drugged up as a population, the more we're hooked on whether it's pills or narcotics, the more controllable we are. And I think that, to me, explains so much why there is ferocious opposition in the swamp, in Washington, among the Democrats, to us stopping these drug cartels and these narco-terrorists from flooding our nation with fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. To me, Seth Moulton, for what he said about Pete Hegseth, he should be ashamed of himself. And, I go back to this fundamental point that I started my monologue with. How many more assassination attempts do you want? So you're calling now for the death of Trump. Now you want the death of J.D. Vance. Now you're calling for Pete Hegseth to be killed. So when does this end? Like, what is this going to become? Rwanda? Well, you're just going out there and having assassinations and people slaughtering each other? And this is supposed to be a member of Congress? The whole thing, really, it's not just sickening. It's not just humiliating and embarrassing. Honestly, it's beyond the pale. You look at someone like Seth Moulton, and I'm like, is this what your pathetic life has come to? So you want to score cheap points with the radical left by calling for the death and the murder of a Secretary of Defense? And notice, he didn't even do it on the Iran war. Not that you should call for anyone's death over the Iran war. But it's not even over that. Where you say, I don't know, whatever, they lied us into the war, whatever. No. The war crimes are being committed against MS-13 Tren de Aragua traffickers on speedboats who are flying in we're flying on the Caribbean, on the high seas to bring their product into the United States. And what, we're just supposed to let them? No, yeah, like under Biden, just say, come on in and kill more people today. Kill more young American kids. Go. And that's a member of Congress. Ay. Seriously, ay. Julie in Tewksbury. Thanks for holding, Julie, and welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Julie.
It just occurred to me recently, and it's kind of mind blowing when I think about it, because it has not even been a generation. Because we're like the same age. We're both in our 50s. When I was in high school, they had the whole Nancy Reagan just say no to drugs.
Yes.
And then Tipper Gore did that whole thing where she was freaking out. We had to put labels on all the
on records. Yeah, the music. Julie, can you please hang on? Because I know where you're going with this. The shift in culture in just a couple decades, it's stunning. Okay, super quick reset, because I want to go right back to Julie in Tewksbury. Seth Moulton now facing a huge backlash after going on This Is CNN and accusing Pete Hegseth of war crimes, of committing war crimes, of being a war criminal over his overseeing the drone strikes, missile strikes, the shooting up of these drug boats, high-speed drug boats on the Caribbean high seas that are bringing in fentanyl, heroin, other deadly narcotics into the United States, according to moron, as I call him, moron Moulton, Seth Moulton, Congressman Moulton, who's, by the way, a hard leftist, a Massachusetts moonbat. He says those are crimes against humanity, that he is killing just ordinary fishermen who are just trying to make a living and feed their families, and that these are war crimes on a scale, on a par with Nazi submarine captains in World War II who were later tried for killing innocent civilians, and the punishment was execution. And the implication is clear. Hegseth is a war criminal. He's committing war crimes. And like the Nazi submarine captains, he deserves to be murdered, executed, and killed. My question to you, do you agree with Seth Moulton, or do you believe now he is openly calling for violence and the murder of Pete Hegseth? And is he now disqualifying himself as someone who is putting the needs and interests of the drug cartels, the drug dealers, the fentanyl traffickers over poor, innocent Americans? Has he now defamed the U.S. military? I say yes. What say you? Let's go back to Julie in Tewksbury. Julie, you were making the great point. While we were growing up in high school in the 80s, we had Nancy Reagan saying, just say no to drugs. Tipper Gore, the wife then of Al Gore, was going on about labels on records. about, profanity or obscenity or improper language in many of these rock songs and rock lyrics. Now, a couple decades later, it's a whole different world. Please, Julie, pick up where you left off.
When it hit me, it kind of broke my heart because you remember, like, back then they were clutching their pearls over Madonna, saying like a virgin, and she had a crucifix, and the kids can't see, they can't hear virgin on the radio, and they don't care about the kid. Like, how did they go from that to they don't care about the kids at all? They let them die, let them have drugs, let them do whatever. It's not even a whole generation, not even close to a generation. We're only in our 50s. And the whole, forget politics, just the way that they think of the kids and the next generation of kids, they don't care about them anymore. And it's just heartbreaking. Like, I don't understand how that's happened. I'm just kind of beside myself when I realized.
No, Julie, really, look, what's changed to me is how much more secular, godless our society has become. And I think that's what's feeding all of this. There's no more sense of right and wrong, good and evil. We've taken that out. And there's a culture of death. The great Saint John Paul the Great, John Paul II, when he was alive, talked about the culture of life and the culture of death. And I think there's no question. There is now a culture of death, and it's being perpetrated and propagated by Hollywood, by the music and entertainment industry, by the Democratic Party, by corporations, by big business, in many of our schools. And it's now become an all-out assault. And it's like a cesspool, a massive cultural, moral cesspool. And we're just swimming in it, trying to survive. And the Democratic Party has now become the party of death. I think there's no question. Look, their fundamental belief is in abortion. And I mean abortion on demand. Abortion up to 9 months, even after the baby is born. So we're talking pure infanticide. That's what the Democratic Party now believes in. The Democratic Party now believes in the legalization of drugs. They believe, and by the way, flooding our country with illegals, even if it means bringing in criminals, mass murderers, gangs, sexual predators, rapists, child molesters. So it goes to your point. They don't care how many of our children are drugged to death or molested or murdered or raped or their minds are utterly polluted and destroyed. So it's a culture of death. And, for a guy like Seth and by the way, I'm going to get to this probably in the next half an hour or so, you got to see the candidate now they're pushing in Maine. Like, you want to take this thing about death, to its ultimate end. They're pushing a Nazi. You understand that? A Nazi as the Senate candidate to beat Susan Collins in Maine. Just like they're pushing an Islamo-fascist as the mayor now of New York, Mamdani, an open supporter of Hamas and Hezbollah and of radical Islamic terrorism. You want to talk about culture of death? This is it. So this is what the Democratic Party has now become. And to me, what's shocking is how many Democrats support this far-left, anti-human, anti-life, pro-drugs culture. That to me is what's amazing. And look, let's just to put the final cherry on the sundae. They are openly hoping and thirsting and wishing for the murder of the President of the United States. Think about that. They don't just want him impeached. They don't just want him removed from office. They want him dead. They want his family dead. They want his number two, J.D. Vance. They want him dead. This is why this is to me a cultural watershed. When you have, a sitting member of Congress with some name recognition who's in a high-profile primary campaign against Ed Markey, and he goes on CNN and says, yeah, basically what he's saying is Hegseth needs to be killed. Someone needs to, he needs to be executed. Okay. I don't know what to tell you. This is American politics now. Kill him. Kill him. What? Kill them all. Just shoot them all. And that's how you get votes? That's how you mobilize people to get, well, you know what? He's calling for the death of Hegseth. I'm going to vote for him. What he did by putting out, by making that outrageous, slanderous, despicable, disgusting statement, he put a target on Pete Hegseth's back. He's basically saying, take him out. Take him out. Take Trump out. Just take him out. If you can't beat him at the polls, and it looks now with redistricting, we may not be able to win back power in Congress in the midterms. Well, there's only one option left. Shoot him. Kill him. Execute him. 617-266-6868 is the number. By the way, just flip it. Just flip it. This is not an original comment on my part. Everybody's making the same point. Can you imagine if a prominent Republican member of Congress went on, say, Fox News and said, under Biden, that his defense secretary Lloyd Austin, well, the guy is like a Nazi submarine captain. He's a war criminal. He's committing war crimes. He needs to be executed. He's got to go. Someone's got to put him to death. The left, the Democrats would be going apoplectic. They would hang seriously, they would hang the guy from Capitol Hill on the steps of Congress. It'd be a lynching. So to show you, if any Republican said about a defense secretary calling for his execution, say Biden's, Lloyd Austin, what the reaction would be. But no, Seth Moulton said it, and here in Massachusetts we respect Seth Moulton. Seth Moulton is speaking for the people of Massachusetts. Someone should put a bullet in the back of Hegseth's brain. That's how sick. And by the way, I didn't know this. I was speaking with Grace last night. We had dinner. Her family's come into town. So my wonderful sister-in-law, Anne-Marie, my young niece, young, she's 26 years old, my 26-year-old niece, Maria. So we were having a nice little dinner yesterday, and Grace made the point. She said, I was just checking on Bruce Springsteen. Apparently he sold out the Boston Garden. TD Garden. He sold it out. And her point being, they're charging $1,000 a ticket. Grace was saying, I think the cheapest is like $780 or $800. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, I commented, I said, who's going to pay these outrageous ticket prices? To see this washed up over the hill, anti-Trumper, this loser, and give you a speech after speech after speech about how evil Trump is and what a threat to democracy he is. Well, it's sold out. And she says people are paying $700, $800, $900 a ticket, and they're horrible seats. You can barely see the stage. So Mike paid $150 to go to the Bruins game. When was this, Mike? Last Thursday. That was the playoffs, right? Yep, playoffs. It was playoff hockey against Buffalo. He paid $150 to see the Bruins. $150 doesn't even get you through the door for a Springsteen concert. Yeah, it might even get you on, you're right, it might not even get you on Causeway. Now, what's the point, Jeff? The point is, that these moonbats are so consumed and obsessed with Trump derangement syndrome. They so hate Trump and they so want to bury him that in a sign of solidarity, because it's a No Kings tour that Springsteen is, spearheading, they're willing to cough up $1,000 to hear this over the hill, washed up loser give you a crappy concert just so that for 2 hours, fellow moonbats can chant slogans about how much they hate the evil orange man. That's how committed they are. Well, it's going to be 20,000 people there, whatever. I don't know what the maximum is, but whatever, 20,000 give or take. And they're willing to spend outrageous money because that's how much they hate Trump. So they bring Seth Moulton on stage. I'm telling you, they're going to give him a standing ovation. That crowd is going to go crazy. In fact, he should come out and say, "It's time to kill the president." And the whole audience will go, "Yeah! We you. That's the Democratic Party today. Okay, on that note, a little over 8 o'clock, but anyway, 8-ish, Friday, you know what that means. Kuhner's Call Log, Caller of the Week.
It's time for Kuhner's Call Log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, Duncan.
I'm a first-time Trump voter, and I have to say I'm very disappointed. I would have that war ended or not even gotten into it because there's way too many things here at home that have issues. And I think even on the Democrat polls, the number 1 and 2 issues were the economy and the invasion. And both of them are not doing too good. He bent the knee on the invasion and no more mass deportations. We see the job market deteriorating, our dollar being devalued, and all Congress is doing, and it doesn't matter which one's in power, is devaluing the dollar and borrowing money, printing money with the Fed. So there's a lot of problems here at home that I think we should be concentrating on, which over the past few weeks, many of your callers have echoed. I really don't care about Iran anymore. I care about what's happening here. I care about my job. I care about my kid's job. We already live in one of the most expensive states in the country. I want everything concentrated back home, and I wanted him to deliver what he promised us. And it's almost a little bit of a betrayal. And I may be just writing in my dog for the midterms.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. Best audience in the business. I can't tell you how many times, not just in iHeart, but even in the entire talk radio business, people high up, executives, so forth, just marvel at the quality of the calls. So anyway, just keep them coming. And again, I want to thank all of you because really you do make this show very, very special. 617-266-6868. Okay. Did Pete Hegseth, was he calling for the execution and murder of, Seth Moulton, my bad. Was Congressman Seth Moulton calling for the execution and murder of Pete Hegseth? And what should Republicans do to counter this growing threat in the Democratic Party? Their open embrace and justification for political violence and assassination. What do we do to stop this growing threat of terrorism emanating from the left and from the Democrats? 617-266-6868. Angelo in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Angelo, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very, very good. How are you, Angelo?
Good. I'm in support of knocking out those boats in the Caribbean because everybody knows someone or has a family member that died from the stuff they're pushing into America. As far as the death penalty for our patriotic top warrior of America, he's doing the right thing. They talk about pushing death penalty and all this stuff, but something, they might get what they wish for because talk about treason. Treason has a death penalty sentence with it. You got everybody under Obama. You got Fauci. You got everybody that's doing these things that is considered treason. And, you know, if they go that route, I mean, I put them all up for treason because they did a ton of treasonous acts. And, you know, we're not calling for that. We just want to try to make America better and everything. It's unfortunate that they're going down that road because they have no political answers for anything that's right for America. They just want to knock it down. Dave was right when he said the money is they're all losing money from these boats being blown up, and they're losing tons of money, and that's why they're cringing, Doge and everything. I said it, I always say it on the air, but you know what we're going through with Iran right now. I don't want to get off topic, but that Doge money, they wanted to give everybody $5,000 a check per person. Use that money to keep gas down, keep our economy going, and that'll till the war's over, and then recoup that money back, and the Democrats will go wild. Just keep doging them, keep auditing them, keep calling it out the truth. They can't back away from the truth, Kuhner, man. You know that. They can't back away from the truth. The truth hurts, and they don't have any of it.
Well, you know, I have to say, Angelo, this is the thing now that's really being exposed by the Republicans on the Democrats. This is what the mask is now being lifted. They are siding with the drug cartels. They're siding with criminals. They're siding with drug dealers. They're siding with the mullahs, since you mentioned Iran. They're openly siding with our mortal enemy. The Democratic Party has now been shown, beyond a shadow of a doubt, to be a treasonous, pro-criminal, pro-Iran, anti-American, anti-white party. There's no question now. There's just no question. And this, you know, this is not the party of FDR or Truman or John F. Kennedy. Hell, this is not even the party of Bill Clinton. And to me, it all goes back to Barack Hussein Obama. I can trace everything back to Obama. Everything. Who really opened the border? It was Obama. Who flooded our country with illegals? It was Obama. Who was the one that divided this country along race? It was Obama. Who was the one that wanted to give Iran the bomb? It was Obama. You go issue after issue after issue. You know, who started these massive record deficits? It was Obama. Who gave us Obamacare? It was Obama. Who pushed all of these soft on crime district attorneys where you saw our cities just go to hell? Drugs, homelessness, crime, you name it. It was Obama. Who pitted white against black? It was Obama. Who introduced DEI and woke ideology and all of this anti-Americanism now that is polluting our schools and our children and is infecting the airwaves? It was all Obama. So, and Biden was his third term. That was supposed to be the finishing blow. Okay, so basically we've been talking all show about Democrats gone wild. Okay, Seth Moulton obviously is the center of the discussion, but how insane, unhinged, deranged, frankly stupid, extreme the Democrats have become. Let me just give you a further taste. Here's just a further taste. So this is Elon, some people did something, Omar. And it's a tape, it's a video that is now resurfaced where she was talking about the Enemies Act regarding illegal aliens. And obviously she's reading off of a screen or a speech or whatever, a teleprompter. And so, you know, World War II, that's usually the 2 is in Roman numerals. So it's, 1 in a Roman numeral and then the one beside it, is a Roman numeral, World War II. Well, it could actually look like an 11. All right, if you know World War II with the Roman numerals, it looks like 1-1. It's like 11. Listen now to Ilhan Omar. This is a resurfaced video of a press conference she gave. Roll cut 50. Mike.
The last time the Alien Enemies Act was invoked, it was used to detain and deport German, Japanese, Italian immigrants during World War II. One of the most shameful chapters of American history.
World War 11, huh? You can't make this up. You can't make it up. So when Trump says, Somalia, they're not sending us their best. I think so. That she doesn't know that, there were 11 world wars. World War 11, there were 2 world wars. And maybe if you liberals get your way, there may be a 3rd world war. No, you're right. It's not even a Freudian slip. Where the hell did 11 come from? You're completely right, Mike. Like, how stupid, how dense, how ignorant do you have to, how low IQ, forgive me, do you have to be? It's like, World War 11, looking around the room. What's everybody looking at me for? Okay, so that's Ilhan Omar. That's what I'm saying. Like, who's the dumbest member of Congress? Who's the dumbest Democrat? I wouldn't want to put that kind of a poll out because people are going to pull their. I can't choose. I can't make a decision. All right, here is Jasmine Crockett on a YouTube podcast. And now remember, she's trying to make the point that as a black woman, she's being held back and discriminated against, repressed, as she put it, in her own, according to her. She goes, "Oh, you got to see the life I have to lead. I'm so discriminated. Hurdles everywhere, oppression everywhere. I don't know how I survive in this country." Listen to her on this podcast. This is a mind bender. Roll cut 19, a mic.
Some people are just like, "Oh, but you're a congresswoman." I'm a black woman first. And so, the level of disrespect that is continuously lobbed against us as black women, for me, I'm like, wait a minute now. I am one of the 535 most powerful people in this country, and for some reason you think we on the same level, but you're gonna disrespect me? Like, it's not gonna happen.
Okay, number one, do you see the arrogance? The power trip that they're on? I'm one of the 535 most powerful people in the country. Don't you disrespect me, girlfriend. Hey, who do you think you are? You don't talk to me, I talk to you. So it just shows you the utter contempt, the elitism, the superiority that they have. This is what they really think of us. And just how stupid can you be? You're an oppressed black woman, according to you, who's being disrespected, held back, denied opportunities, but you're also part of the 535 most powerful people in the country. So which is it? I mean, you can't be both. It can't be Jim Crow, but you're part of the most powerful club in the world. And, kiss my foot. Show proper deference to me. So it's either one or it's the other. But that's the Democrats for you. This is what I mean. Again, dumbest Democrat in Congress. Jasmine Crockett. She's a contender. No question. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I'm going to continue to take your calls. Okay, my friends, the lines are jammed. I'm going to go right back to the phones. However, President Trump has sparked a mini public firestorm. And as you know, the World Cup is coming here to the United States as well as Canada. And but there's going to be a lot of games played here in America. And one of the teams that will be coming or could be coming is the People's Republic of Iran, the Islamic Republic. Iran will be fielding a World Cup soccer team. They've qualified. And so the question now is, since we're at war with Iran, should Iran's team be allowed to compete in the FIFA World Cup, which is going to start, in a couple months? And should they be allowed to play in the United States? And who knows? Maybe even against Team USA. We'll see how the draw plays out. Listen now to President Trump's response. He's asked by Peter Doocy of Fox News, and Trump says, should they play? Listen to Trump's response. Roll cut for Mike.
A little while ago, the president of FIFA said that when the World Cup is here in the U.S., the team from Iran will be playing in the games.
Well, if Johnny said it, I'm okay. Did Johnny say it?
He did. What if they
Johnny
win?
Infantino, that's a piece of work.
What if they win?
Well, if they win, we'll have to worry about that. That's not. I'm going to have to worry about that one. Look, you know what? Let him play well. Johnny's fantastic. He's a friend of mine, and he talked about it. I said, you do whatever you want. You can have them. You don't have to have them. Probably have a good team. I don't know. Do they have a good team? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea.
Would be hard to believe, actually. But I think let him play. Right?
So the guy that he's referring to, Gianni, that's Gianni Infantino, and he's the president of FIFA. And so he and Trump are friends. And anyway, long story, he calls him Johnny. Anyway, it's Gianni. Anyway, so Gianni is saying, hey, look, can you guarantee the team's safety and security? And, and we just want to make sure these players don't get killed, or, say breach of security or, and should they be allowed to play? So Trump is basically saying, look, do they have a good team? Do they not have a good team? They don't have a good team. They're not going to win the World Cup. Take it to the bank. All right. Trust me on this. There's no way in hell they're going to win the World Cup. But anyway, let that go. Trump is saying, let them play. Let them come. Let them compete. We may still be at war with Iran. It doesn't matter. Sports is sports, and it should be separate from politics and war. So my question to you, should the Iran soccer team, okay, this is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Should the Iran soccer team be allowed to play in the World Cup, which, as you know, is being held in the United States? A, yes, they should be allowed to play. B, no, they shouldn't be allowed to play. What say you? You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER, or you can vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. I'm really split on this issue. Part of me says, what if there's a couple of these crazy Islamist fanatics on that team? And now you bring him into the United States. And suddenly, before you know it, he's not chasing the ball. He's running into the stadium, like where the fans are, in the seating section with a bomb strapped to his chest. Allah Akbar, Allah, 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 Allah. And you've got dead bodies everywhere. Okay, so part of me is I don't know if I can trust them as far as I can throw them. So for security reasons, I don't know if I want them in the country. The other half of my brain says I'm pretty sure most of the team, like the women's soccer team, who Trump was urging Australia to give them asylum because they refused to sing the national anthem of Iran in solidarity with the protesters who were being gunned down by these savage mullahs. I'm pretty sure many of the players are secretly against the mullahs and probably with us and very sympathetic to us. So, and I'm thinking, you work hard, you train hard, you win your games you're supposed to win to be able to make it to the World Cup, to qualify. Why punish them? Don't confuse the regime with the people. And so I'm like, ugh. It just takes one of these crazies to do tremendous damage. You don't want to let them in. But on the other hand, I'm pretty sure a good majority of the players probably despise the mullahs, like the female women's soccer team that refused to sing the national anthem. I'm pretty sure most of them won't even sing Iran's national anthem when they do come into this country and play, putting themselves and their families in jeopardy. So half of me says, why punish them? They have nothing to do with the crimes of the regime, and they probably hate the regime. And the other half of my brain says, all you need is just one to let them in. And it could be a lot of dead people, especially in a stadium packed with 60, 70, 80,000 fans. 617-266-6868. I would love to see Team USA play Iran in the World Cup. That would be a match for the ages. And then to see Team USA kick their ass. Oh, I would pay good money to watch that game. Yeah, Mike says we suck too, but I think they suck more than we do, Mike. You know what I'm saying? That's why we'll make it a good game. You know what I mean? You should have hit. You missed the ball? How could you miss the ball? Oh my God, we got a breakaway. So anyway, I think it'll be actually a good game because both teams aren't that good. And so there's probably going to be more goals than usual. Anyway, I'm off track now. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, Mike, who do you want me to go to next, my friend? George in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. I'm an amateur historian. I like to read about World War II, but I'm so sick of hearing this World War II comparison for every freaking daily tribulation in the world. It's getting redundant.
George, hold on a second. George, I can't believe you're not as sophisticated and well-read as Ilhan Omar. It's not World War II, George. It's World War XI. Hey, come on. You got to get with the program, my friend. So please, you mean World War XI. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, so Jeff, my recommendation is that if you would break it down to the lowest level, and anytime a liberal calls, everything has to be World War II in terms of your response. It might be Tarawa, or we could talk about the Battle of the Bulge when we're dealing with a daily thing. But it's just getting ridiculous on that end. And the reality is, America's one of its biggest foreign failures policies is definitely the drugs. It's changed the culture. Basically, there's a working class out there that is unemployable now because either they're addicted or felons, because the two go together. And I can't even put a crew together just on that basic level. So, if they want to take out gunboats, a thumbs up on my end. Or fast boats in the Caribbean bringing in that poison into our country, because until we start executing these drug dealers, this issue is not going away. And instead of focusing on everything else in the we think we should really worry about our border and really solve this problem.
I agree. George, I agree on every count. And, look, you're obviously, you read about World War II, you're an amateur historian. If you know anything about the Nazis, anything, you've read one book on the Nazis, just one, to compare Pete Hegseth to a Nazi submarine captain, to compare Trump to Hitler, as they always do, you're insane. I don't mean you as you, George. I'm talking about, these moonbats, these liberals. No, either you're unbelievably ignorant or you're absolutely insane. The depravity of the Nazis, the millions that they murdered, the death camps, the concentration camps, the savagery of the regime, to even put Nazi in front of any American, never mind the Secretary of War, the President of the United States, you're either deranged or honestly you're like Ilhan Omar, the most ignorant, stupidest person on the planet. So you're right. This constant, everything is World War II. It's not even World War II. Everything is Hitler, Nazi, fascist. Look, I speak to a lot of teachers, and I still have, because I used to teach history at McGill University, so I still know a lot of people in academia. And it doesn't matter if it's elementary school teachers, high school teachers, or even college professors. And they tell me, almost to a man and a woman, they go, Jeff, the student body has changed. The quality of the students have changed in the last 25 to 30 years. You just wouldn't believe it. And I said, well, what do you mean? They go, well, first of all, almost all of them are on drugs. I go, you got to be kidding me. They go, well, either it's narcotics, like illegal drugs, or they're on some kind of pill from Big Pharma. He goes, it's almost 100%. And he says they've been dumbed down, or they say that these students have been dumbed down. It's not just the brainwashing, the indoctrination. By the way, there's now a huge study out. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a direct correlation. The longer time you spend in college, the more likely you are to support political violence. So let's say you're there for 2 years, you're at 15%. But if you finish your degree 4 years, what is it now? Almost over one out of every 4 college student now that graduates, 26%, says that at times political violence is necessary and justified. That's unheard of. That basically 1 out of 4 college graduates now believe that it's okay to kill the President of the United States or the Secretary of Defense or whoever, this Vice President, if it serves some greater political good. 25%. 1 out of 4. 1 out of 4. But to get back to my original point, is they're saying, Jeff, these students are high. They're abusing drugs. They're often on drugs. They've started drugs at a much younger age. They do a lot more than previous generations did. It's almost like a way of life. And it's turned many of them, not all, but many of them, it's turned their minds into absolute mush. And that's why they're easily manipulated. They're easily brainwashed. That's why many of them are so angry, or they're aimless. And we're creating a social moral wasteland. And it's very sad. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And I believe it's a key reason why so many young people vote for the Democratic Party. I think there's no question. So you're watching the deliberate dumbing down of the United States, the deliberate, process of mass addiction of the United States, and ultimately for what end? You want a nation of what? Of stoners? Is that what you want? Because there's no future there. There's no future for them, and there's no future for the country. Now, it leads me to my other story that I wanted to at least touch on. And if you're on the line, I'm going to come to you, I promise. But because there's things happening that wouldn't happen even 10 years ago. And you have to start scratching your head, like, why? Why? Why is this happening? For example, right, you have literally an Islamo-communist running New York City. How the hell could New Yorkers vote for this guy? By the way, they're already in an economic crisis. The guy's barely, 3-4 months into his tenure, Mamdani. And he's begging now the state legislature in Albany for a huge bailout. He's already run the city into the ground. They're already on the verge of bankruptcy. He's only 3 months in. So who could vote for city-run grocery stores? Who could run for defunding the police? Abolishing prisons? Like, think how insane these proposals are. Sharia law in New York City. Sharia law. Who could support a terrorist organization like Hamas? An open anti-Semite and America hater. And yeah, sure, let's vote for him. Yeah, man. yeah, man. Oh, that's good stuff. Yeah, man. He's going to give us free food, man. Free transportation, free bus fare. It's all free, man. Let's vote for him, man. So you're seeing this all over the country. And it's more extreme and more extreme and more extreme. And so you ask yourself, like, what's going on here? Well, here it is. Okay, here it is. Maine, because Rob spoke of New England. Here it is. Yesterday, and I can't stand her. I can't stand her. I think she's a horrible governor, but it doesn't matter. A two-term governor of Maine, current governor of Maine, 2 terms, Janet Mills, had to throw in the towel and suspend her campaign for the Senate, U.S. Senate, to challenge Susan Collins in November. Why? Because she was getting destroyed by this complete and utter political novice, this newcomer that no one has ever heard of, Graham Plattner. Now, I want you to think about this. Janet Mills is radically pro-abortion. She's a radical pro-feminist. She's LGBTQ all the way, to the point that she was suing the Trump administration so that biological men could play in women's sports, go into women's locker rooms, go and shower in the same shower with them, in the showers. This is the kind of woman Janet Mills is. A sanctuary city-state for Maine. Champion, advocate, ferocious defender of the illegal Somalis in Portland and in other places across Maine. So she's pro-open borders, anti-ICE, radically pro-abortion, radically pro-LGBTQ. She's not left-wing enough. I'm telling you, she's not left-wing enough. She couldn't raise enough money or get enough support. Why? Because she's now being destroyed in the polls by now he's a self-admitted communist. Like Mamdani. You know, Mamdani says, I'm a communist. I'm proud of it. This guy, Graham Plattner, is an admitted communist, backed by Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Mamdani. No one ever heard of this guy. He comes on the scene and says, I will push a communist revolution should you elect me. He's not just a self-admitted communist. He is pro-Hamas. I mean, openly pro-Hamas. He is a diehard anti-Semite. I don't mean I support these campus protests. I'm talking, he says his favorite podcaster is a guy called Stu Peters. You can look it up. Don't take my word for it. Stu Peters, S-T-E-W. Maybe one of the most anti-Semitic podcasters in the entire country. Stu Peters is calling for, quote, the final solution to Jews in America. And what's his final solution to Jews in America? To ethnically and religiously expel them from the United States. He says, no, I disagree with Hitler. Don't throw all the Jews in the gas ovens. Just kick them out of the country. Just expel them. Every Jew out. Okay, as the term Judenfrei, the Nazis had, free of Jews. He wants America Judenfrei. Graham Plattner says that's his intellectual hero. He is pro-Antifa, a huge supporter of Antifa. He supports Hamas killing Israeli Jews. This is the kind of monster he is. And this is the one that is such a mind bender. That even a decade ago would have been verboten in American politics, Republican or Democrat. He has a Nazi tattoo. This is the candidate, Graham Plattner. He has a Nazi tattoo stamp on his chest. But not just any Nazi tattoo. No. It is an SS tattoo. It's the infamous skull and bones, what is called the SS Death's Head. So he doesn't just have a Nazi tattoo. He has the worst of the Nazi tattoos. No problem. No problem. Now, let me tell you what the media is not telling you. I don't believe this is peculiar to Maine. I don't. Anti-Semitism now has now become the central ideology of the Democratic Party. Let me repeat that. Anti-Semitism has now become the central ideology of the Democratic Party. Because if you talk to his supporters in Maine, these leftists, these radical Democrats, they will tell you the fact that Graham Plattner put an SS tattoo on his chest and supports a podcaster, in fact, loves a podcaster that calls for every single Jew to be expelled or cleansed from the United States, is the reason why they're voting for him. They're not voting for him because, he got drunk and he got this SS tattoo put on his chest and we all do stupid things in life and they're trying to excuse it away. No. They're saying, we love it that he hates Jews. We love it that he wants Judenfrei, Judenfrei America. We love it that he's a self-styled, openly admitted communist who backs Hamas and Antifa. This is what we want. We want a Jew hater. We want a neo-Nazi. We want someone that's going to kick the Jews in the teeth. In other words, we want a clone of Mamdani. Now, he may not be an Islamo-communist, but he's an anti-Semitic Nazi communist. And that's good enough for us. Bernie supports him. AOC supports him. Ilhan Omar loves him. Rashida Tlaib loves him. And he just destroyed the sitting governor, moonbat governor of Maine. Now, this is from the party. Just think about this. This is from the party that keeps calling Trump and MAGA Nazis. And what are they doing? They are about to nominate a Nazi, an actual Nazi, to be their standard bearer against Susan Collins. And then, don't take my word for it. Again, John Favreau, F-A-V-R-E-A-U. He was in the Obama administration. He's actually a close friend of Obama. He's what they call an Obama bro. This is what he wrote yesterday after Janet Mills announced no mas, no more. She's throwing in the towel. She can't defeat this guy Plattner in a primary. There's no point. Favreau goes on X and says Graham Plattner, quote, is a good, decent man who gives us the best opportunity to defeat Susan Collins in November. There is no clearer example of how the Democrats have sold their soul in the pursuit of power than to call a Nazi, a guy with a freaking SS tattoo, a self-admitted communist, a supporter of Hamas and Antifa, a good, decent man? We're in uncharted territory. He's a National Socialist. He's a National Socialist. Or if you want to be more accurate, he's a National Bolshevik. And by the way, don't buy the media spin. The way the media is lying about this guy, it's disgusting. They're spinning him as this working class oysterman. He's another one. He's a fisherman going to South Moulton. And everybody now is a fisherman. Drug dealers are fishermen, narco-terrorists are fishermen, and these National Bolshevik, anti-Semitic, Nazi scum, they're all fishermen now. He's not some working class oysterman. He comes from money. He was born in a wealthy family. He's what they call a Nepo baby. He was born with the silver spoon in his mouth. That's why this loser has been able to travel all over the world and put all these sick tattoos on his body. And now he's got a little bit of money because he comes from money. And he's got the backing of the Bernie AOC Mamdani wing, which is the dominant wing of the Democratic Party. And all of their shock troops love him. In fact, they idolize him. He's their new darling. They find him sexy. And by the way, if you know anything about World War II, since everybody's throwing Nazi around, you know Hitler was considered sexy in Germany? No joke. Mussolini in Italy was considered a sex symbol. But Hitler, the women went nuts for Hitler. Just like the women are going crazy now for this guy Plattner. Liberal, leftist, progressive women. They all want to sleep with this guy. And the tattoo, they think is, it arouses them. I don't know how else to say this. It turns them on. The skull, the bones. He's willing to kill the Israelis. He's willing to go and kill Jews. He's a man's man. He's a man of action, man of violence. Drives around on a motorcycle with leather. The SS tattoo bulging. He's a tough guy. So they're now going to put an actual Nazi to run against Susan Collins as they accuse us of being Nazis, which is the exact opposite of what we are. The Democratic Party, and I'm not saying this the way the left uses racism to just attack for the sake of attacking, to discredit, to defame. The Democratic Party, I'm choosing my words very carefully, is sliding towards all-out anti-Semitism. I don't care now who you look at. They hate Israel. They hate the Jews. They hate Jewish culture. And they love Hamas. They're siding with Iran. They're siding with Hezbollah. And now they're putting up some of the most nauseous, dangerous, vile, extreme political activists who are openly flirting with neo-Nazism as their candidates for the U.S. Senate. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask you, what do you make of the fact, just to throw another log on the fire, as I like to say, that Maine Democrats now are going to nominate, without question, essentially a neo-Nazi as their candidate to go up against Susan Collins, a man with an SS tattoo stamped right on his chest. And are we now watching the Democrats become a full-blown anti-Semitic party that in many ways resembles the National Socialist Party in Germany? To me, I think the evidence is overwhelming, but that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Kevin in Newton. Thanks for holding, Kevin, and welcome.
Jeff, thanks a million for having me on. I was in 69 and 70, I was in Vietnam, and this will relate to Seth Moulton. We used to sit in bunkers getting rocketed every single night. And one of the things that caused me to believe in God and believe in this country and so forth is the fact that we created good men to go in and take out those rockets and those munitions. It was called the Fishhook area of Vietnam. It was 1970. And we went in and took out tons of equipment. If you were in the Fishhook area at the time, 1970, you guys out there will know this. What happened was we used to sit in these explosions all around us, and we didn't know if it was going to be on us. And we used to think, not for our own safety, but we're saving a mother from crying at home. Now, we lost 58,600 some odd thousand guys in Vietnam. We lose almost 100,000 a year before Trump put the wall up. Now, one person would move and demonstrate in the streets except for this King stuff. Do you know that Seth Moulton, I don't know who his unit was and what he was doing, but I can't imagine the guys that were around him hearing his traitorous and treasonous comments about what he's saying. Yes, these people are the Antichrist, and they had the death head. Yes, they did, and the Nazis. And this Democratic Party, I came home, I didn't care anything about politics, but I do now, and I think that we've been overrun by these individuals that want to see us with the death head. You think about the abortion at 9 months, these people are the party of death.
What do you make of the fact, as a veteran, and I want to thank you for your service, by the way. You know how much I love you guys, especially Vietnam vets. Not because I don't respect the others who served in other wars, but just I don't like the way you were treated, the way when when most of you came back home. And so I have a special, deep affection for Vietnam vets. But I don't care. Any vet, whether you served in a war, didn't serve in a war. I truly love all of you. I really do. I have to ask you, for him to compare Pete Hegseth and taking out narco-terrorists on their speedboats as they try to flood our country with that poison, as you said, before Trump came, was killing 100,000 Americans, mostly young people, every single year. So that's two Vietnams, in a year. Two Vietnams in a year under Biden. And Trump now is basically stopped it cold. And yet he says that Hegseth and the U.S. military are the equivalent of the Nazi submarine captains who were indiscriminately slaughtering women and children, blowing up ships for the sake of blowing up ships, and killing, mass murdering civilians, and that they rightly got execution for what they did because they were war criminals. And so what he's saying is that Hegseth and the military are committing war crimes and that they're rampant with war criminals, and that not only Hegseth but the military who are executing his policy, they deserve death. They deserve to be killed and executed. He has defamed the U.S. military, defamed Pete Hegseth, and I believe now put a clear target on his back. And this is no accident that this was done. He said this, 5-6 days after the White House Correspondents' Dinner? So it's not enough now to call for Trump to be murdered? You have to call for Hegseth to be murdered? So my question to you, has Seth Moulton defamed and slandered the U.S. military in your view?
Not only did he defame it, Jeff, he created a situation where his words could actually get these Nimrods that you earlier showed the brains of these people, whether they were on drugs or whatever. I don't know what happened to this guy, and I don't know if he was a patriot when he was in the military. I don't know that. But I do know that when you see an individual like that talking about the things he's saying, he's got people that I'm amazed that would vote for this guy, and he wants to talk about the Jewish people, and a lot of them are my friends. I have a little barber shop in Auburndale, and these people come into my shop, and a lot of them are Jewish, and they're friends of mine if we don't talk politics. But they see it differently, and it's almost like he's dehumaned the Jews, he's dehumaned the people around, like the people that Hesteth, and they must be doing something right if it's peeing off these liberal lunatics like this.
Oh, I'm with you. No, I'm completely with you, Kevin. Look, Kevin, do me a favor. When you meet your Jewish friends or customers, ask them about just ask them about Graham Plattner. Say, he's going to be the main Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate. Joining us now, as she always does at this time, she is the co-founder, CEO, and president of Kelly Financial Services. And yes, that is her wonderful name, Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. Something we're seeing more often right now, and that many families are quietly dealing with, is helping their adult children. Whether it's covering expenses, helping through a tough time, or even caring for grandchildren. It usually comes from a place of love, but at some point, people start to wonder how much is too much. Because while you want to be there for your family, you also have to be mindful of your own future. These kinds of decisions have an impact on long-term financial stability if they're not thought through carefully. That's why we put together our investor guide called Will Your Money Last As Long As You Do? It walks through real-life scenarios like this and helps you better understand the bigger picture. If you'd like a copy, you can give us a call or email us at kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Jeff, I'll continue this conversation tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or visit our website for the Radio Rewind. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. My best to Grace and the kiddos.
Thank you, Kelly. All the best to you and everyone at Kelly Financial. To get a free copy of that guide, and I urge all of you, if you can, do get it. Call now, 888-800-1881, 888-800-1881, or you can actually email Kelly herself personally, kelly@kellyfinancial.org. That's kelly@kellyfinancial.org. 9:34 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, you can text the Kuhner man, 70470. I really want to read this text because this should open many people's eyes about Graham Plattner, the Democratic candidate now for the U.S. Senate. Janet Mills is now out. and he'll be going up against Susan Collins. And the left loves him. The media, they're turning him really into a white Obama. I'm not kidding, that he is the future of the Democratic Party. So this is what 617 writes. Jeff, because I live near Maine and even was contemplating buying a home in Maine, I have followed Graham Plattner very carefully since last summer. To put a fine point on him, he is like Obama with a beard and dirty clothes. He speaks very charismatically, but in platitudes. Plattner-tudes, as I call them. He never gets very specific, but talks about quote-unquote fairness and quote-unquote opportunity and quote-unquote rights, human rights, and quote-unquote the little guy. And those listening, like with Obama, fill in the blanks in their own minds as each sees fit about what the details might be. Plattner rails on about quote-unquote elitist power and, quote, bringing Maine back to the working people, quote, again, like Obama. All with the irony that Plattner is the son of rich leftists and went to the most expensive prep schools. Even his oyster farmer bit is a fraud. And yet, when I talk to Mainers, they seem to be buying his act hook, line, and sinker. Wow. Wow. Susan Collins is going to be in a dogfight. This is where we are now. A purple state like Maine, maybe trending blue, but still, it certainly wasn't it's not Massachusetts, it's not California, it's not Illinois, and they're putting up a self-described communist with an SS tattoo on his chest, a vile anti-Semite, supporter of Antifa and Hamas. And that may be the next senator from Maine. You want to know how radicalized and how insane the Democratic Party has become? This is it. This is it. It's now Bernie's party, AOC's party, Mamdani's party. And I fear now there's going to be no going back. And to every Jew out there listening, Jewish American, this should be now your wake-up call. Because the Democrats now are coming for you. Denise in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Denise, and welcome.
How are you?
Hi, Denise. I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay, so my thing is this. Years ago, I was a Democrat up until 10 years ago. 20 years ago, JFK, and way beyond before that, JF Kennedy, awesome Democrat. The Democrat Party is no longer the Democrat Party. They're the party of destruction for every legal American citizen and anybody who just watches a little bit of the right news, at least. And now sometimes CNN says some good things. They have no idea. They still vote, and I talk to people daily, every day, that are Democrats, and I'm like, how could you vote Democrat when you see all of the hate and destruction that they're causing on all of us United States citizens? They want illegal citizens here, and they want to give them all of our finances. And we've seen all of this play out for the last 10 years, if you were watching. And it's like, I have children that are grown, and I talk to them daily, and I've got them to understand what's going on. But these people have been psychologically brainwashed. There's no other explanation that anybody could possibly vote for any Democrat. They're all purposely picked and installed to destroy our Western civilization. I mean, and Seth Moulton is another one that's just being installed. This person in Maine, another one that they picked to continue to destroy our beautiful United States of America. So I'm disgusted.
Well, Denise, I think honestly, that's our ace in the hole. what you're talking about now. I know it's disgusting. I agree with you completely. But you're seeing now a party that has gone from FDR and Truman and JFK really now to the party of Lenin. And maybe even a little bit Hitler. I mean, if you look at Graham Plattner, I mean, some of the stuff that he says, I mean, that's pretty scary. And the people that he's championing, when you start talking about expelling all Jews from the United States of America, when you start talking about you support Islamic terrorist groups that slaughter innocent women and children, when you support the enemy of the United States, whatever you think of the war with Iran, okay, whatever you think about it, but they're siding with the mullahs. You know, the most dangerous Islamo-fascist regime on the planet. There's no question. They're the number one sponsor of terrorism. They are open admirers of the Nazis and Hitler. After the Quran, the number one, the second best-selling book, you know, the Quran is number one. Number two, it's Mein Kampf. And the joke among conservatives in Maine is that Graham Plattner should come out with his own book called Mein Kampf. Instead of Mein Kampf, my struggle, it should be Mein Kampf. And I, for the life of me, they make Nazism and Hitler the epitome of all evil. That's all they attack their opponents with. That's all they've been hitting Trump with now for 10 years. Hitler, 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 Hitler. And who the hell do they nominate to run against Susan Collins? A guy with an actual SS insignia, the death's head, tattooed on his chest. You're looking at this like, what? This is very dangerous. And I believe now it's going to get even worse. The Democrats are going to go for the Islamic vote. They're going to go for the hardcore Muslim vote. And you're going to see them become increasingly anti-Semitic. They're already anti-Semitic, but it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And when you have a party like this, one of the two major parties, espousing an ideology this virulent, this vile, frankly, this bigoted, it's going to tear the country apart. Denise, Democrats better look in the mirror because they're making a deal now with the devil. And you support AOC, Mamdani, Graham Plattner, Bernie Sanders. You are supporting hate. Period. Full stop. Mark in Bedford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
'Cause I've got 2 kids.
Mike, was that us or was that him? He has us on hold. Okay, well, all right. Who do you want me to go to next? Dave in Worcester. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. My real name isn't Dave, but if I told you my real name, I might not be able to feed my family. So I've been working in a high school for 3+ decades, and I've seen many changes. I could talk for hours, but I'm just going to tell you about something that happened about 6 weeks ago. A bunch of students decided that they were going to have an anti-ICE student walkout. So the administration caught wind of this, and the administration got together with the school committee and the superintendent, and they decided to tell all the children that you can have your walkout for 20 minutes, and teachers will be told not to mark you absent. So the children went outside for 20 minutes, and the parents came by and filmed, and the state rep came by, and everybody was happy. And then most of the students went back in and went back to class, with the exception of about 5 or 6 that decided to march into a math class where there were children actually learning math rather than participating in an anti-ICE demonstration. And they were holding up signs in the math class yelling, "blank ICE." The word begins with the letter F. And so most of those children were suspended, except for one, a young lady, a student from Uganda. She told the principal, I can't believe you're going to suspend me for this when I have to walk down the halls every day and hear the N-word, which is untrue. There was a lot of N-words being flung around in, 2018, 2019, but it was mostly African-American kids using that word to each other. Anyway, the principal said, let me get back to you on that. And subsequently, that student suspension was rescinded. And the student ended up bragging about it. That's how I heard about it. And she said, saying, quote, I can get my way when I turn on the tears. And that's my story.
It's incredible. It really is. So, and how old are these kids, if you don't mind me asking, Dave?
Grade 9, 10, 11, and 12. High school.
Unbelievable. So at that young of an age, they already know how to bully authority, intimidate authority, play authority, manipulate authority, play on this, liberal guilt. And so they just, they don't go to class, and as long as it's for a political cause, a left-wing political cause, then, or an anti-Trump cause or an anti-ICE cause, there's no consequences. It's just, to me, outrageous, honestly. I mean, what you're describing is not a school. What you're describing is an indoctrination camp. That's what that is. It's a brainwashing center where the inmates are running the asylum. Dave, I've got to ask you, and I don't want to out you because I want you to keep your job, but it seems to me you've been around for a while. Have you noticed a decline in the quality of the students over the decades?
Bar has been lowered quite a bit academically to the point where the school has done something called, and they call this collapsing the levels. In other words, if a student that's struggling with long division wants to take Algebra 2 honors, then they should be allowed to do that, and the teacher has to, quote-unquote, deal with it. That's where we're at now.
So you're saying you've personally seen the dumbing down of our country, or at least the dumbing down of the upcoming generation of our country?
Administration tells the kids, yeah, you have permission to have a walkout as long as you're only gone for 20 minutes. Jeff, that's not a walkout. That's a field trip.
Oh, I so agree with you. I mean, I don't want to do the whole, back in my day, but you were late for class for 1 or 2 minutes, so they sent you to the principal's office in high school. It's like, well, what are you doing? The bell rings. You're supposed to be in class. Let's go. This is, Dave, it's very depressing. It's very depressing, and it's hurting the students, and it's hurting us. It's hurting the country, but it's not doing the students any favors either. Dave, great story, great example, great call. Thank you so much, Dave. Can I squeeze one more in, Mike? Carol in Bridgewater. Thanks for holding, Carol, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Carol, great to hear from you again.
Good to talk to you. I just have to say here that I've noticed for many years, even during my classes, I graduated in 1974, so from high school, and the teachers then were more liberal in indoctrinating what they were pushing us to. They still had to hold to the curriculum, but as you saw more and more people be instilled in our government that were liberal, and they were hiding it for a while, but it would eke out and eke out. Now they're blatantly, liberal and communist and socialist. They're all destructive. They're all for just poisoning all the minds of the children. I mean, what do you think people put out these bills like Moulton and them that get installed in our governments? They run as moderates, and then they slowly, show that they are trying to destroy, just like Obama did when he kept lecturing us here. I mean, we're seeing the dumbing down of people, the fact that they're passing, laws that allow them to openly smoke pot. I mean, people are doing it because they can, and they see what their peers are doing here. some may be medicinal, but people these days so overdo it. They vape it, they're constantly smoking. We have a dumbed down Democratic Party. That's what I have to say.
Well, Carol, you're completely right. And, you get, they always say this, you get the leaders you deserve. There's a lot of Democrats voting for people like Seth Moulton, and they're going to be voting for Graham Plattner up in Maine. And if Susan Collins is not careful, she's going to lose. I mean, just think about that. People voted for AOC. They voted for Mamdani. I mean, they're voting. They love Bernie. Bernie's a hero in the Democratic Party. Think of that. So you want to talk about the dumbing down of the United States. It's scary.